Corla. As it is International Women's Day, I do genuinely welcome the diligence with which the Government is prioritising the referendum on repeal. I'm sorry that you haven't had the same diligence, mind you, with bringing forward mandatory inquests in relation to maternal deaths. But as it is International Women's Day, and as you didn't answer the points raised by Deputy McGrath in relation to the powerful, explosive testimony given at the Justice Committee yesterday by those two outstanding women, I want to return to some of those points, because you talked, Tainiste, about evidence and facts if people were bullied. These are not points of dispute. The facts and the evidence are in the testimony of those women, which should be compulsory reading for every member in this House. Over a period of 15 months, these consummated professionals, analysts, forensic scientists have found the workplace a very difficult place. Only the support of themselves got them through it. Severe pressure, integrity undermined, belittled and treated poorly. All this in our newly reformed on Garda Síochána, where we welcome our critical friends. I don't think so, because what was the crime of these women? They had the audacity to refuse to sign off on a report presented to the policing authority regarding a review of domestic homicides which had been commissioned by them. A review which, contrary to what the guards told the policing authority, revealed minor misclassifications, actually uncovered significant inconsistencies of a grave nature with many ramifications regarding the ability of Garda Síochána to protect and serve. Domestic cases where the partner of a deceased person was in a new domestic violence relationship. And let's remember, this is happening a couple of months ago against the backdrop of the fact that the majority of homicides in 2017 were domestic murders, and where misclassified information and a signal not followed could be the difference between life and death. Tainiste, what I want to know is, how many more Garda scandals is your government prepared to take before you'll hold somebody to account? You waffle on about oversight bodies and the policing authority. We went to the last policing authority body. Do you not know that it's irrefutable now that senior Gardaí lied and misled the policing authority at its April and June meeting? But not just that. These women went to the policing authority with their queries. The policing authority knew there were problems, and not only did they not respond to them, but they went back to their bosses and ratted them out. Can you imagine the chilling effect of these two powerful women? They read in the media about a policing authority that's there for oversight. They go with their genuine problems. They try and make their case, and they don't get heard. And not only that, but the people who they go to tell their bosses. For God's sake, Tainiste, can I please ask you, what is the Minister for Justice doing? Is he calling a meeting with the Garda Commissioner, with the policing authority? Do you think it's okay to lie, bully and isolate people? If you don't, who are you going to call to account?
Tainiste.
Deputy, clearly the government doesn't think it's okay to lie, bully and intimidate people in any walk of life in Ireland, but in particular in Garda Síochána. That is why the Minister and the Government are obviously concerned about the evidence that was given yesterday, and we will act on that. But we also, I think, need to recognise that the Minister for Justice only heard that evidence yesterday for the first time. We need to now follow up on that and to make sure that appropriate action is taken. To say that the Government is not committed to reform of the Gardaí and holding people to account is absolute nonsense, because if you look at the actual actions that the Government has taken repeatedly over and over again, responding to various scandals in Garda Síochána, resulting in a tribunal today, the whole approach that the Government is taking is about a fundamental reform of both the culture in Garda Síochána and indeed the structures to ensure that we enforce and require a new culture in the future, to ensure that the kind of allegations that we heard yesterday are dealt with in a much more comprehensive way than seems to have been the case. So I want to thank the two women concerned for the courage that they've shown to raise these issues publicly yesterday. I want to give them and give everybody else an assurance that the Government is going to take that testimony very seriously in terms of how we follow up on it. And I want to reassure Anybody who feels that they need or wants to come forward to expose wrongdoing or inappropriate behaviour or intimidation or bullying in Garda Síochána or indeed in any other arm of the state, to come forward and do that and reassure them that the government will take that seriously and will act on the evidence that they get while working with whistleblowers and others who are brave enough to come forward. So I can't be any clearer on that, Deputy. But what I can't give you is a comprehensive response in terms of how the government will act, because that evidence was only given yesterday. And to be fair to the Minister and his department, I think he needs time to consider that in terms of an appropriate response.
Thank you, Tainiste. Deputy Daly.
Senior Gardaí misleading the policing authority in relation to these matters was not only made known yesterday. What entered the public domain clearly yesterday was the evidence that the policing authority, which you've just lauded, also had that information for over a year. The so-called oversight body to call the Gardaí to account had this information for over a year, and they did nothing. They closed the door on these women, not just closed it, but also told tales about them to their bosses. And this is the oversight body that you're proud of, which demonstrates your actions at reform. You talk about a change in culture. Are you aware that the same policing authority recently promoted an individual who is the subject of an internal investigation into bullying and harassment against a whistleblower, and not just promoted him, but put him at the head of training in Templemore, where on the one hand he has the code of ethics, on the other he's cursing and banging the table and interning people inside that. Is that the culture you want?
Please, Deputy, your namings, you haven't used a name.
I haven't used any name.
You have made a comment that would enable a person to be identified, and that's completely inappropriate in the House, as you well know.
I can stand over every comment I've made here.
That may be the case, but it's completely inappropriate to make such a statement here.
The point being, it's irrefutable, Tainiste, that the culture in Garda Síochána has not changed, that you have a systemic problem at the top with senior management, and the pathetic measures which you've put in place in setting up a policing authority which is now part of the problem urgently needs to be addressed. The women don't want a pat on the head. They don't want to be told how great they are. They want things to change.
Thank you, Deputy. Tainiste, to conclude, please.
Nobody's offering anybody a pat on the head, Deputy. We are in a process of fundamental reform of Garda Síochána, and there are multiple examples of how that is happening, not least in terms of how a new Garda Commissioner is going to be chosen and appointed. But can I say that the evidence that was given yesterday to an Oireachtas committee needs significant follow-up. I don't think it's helpful for you to start pointing the finger at individuals that can be identified by the way in which you're speaking about them. There is an appropriate way in which we need to deal with this comprehensively, and that is what the Minister for Justice will do, acting on the evidence that was given yesterday and following up on that to ensure that we can expose any wrongdoing and ensure that we put structures in place to fix that.
Deputy Catherine Murphy, please.